Remember when Nathan approached David about his sin with Bathsheba? Remember how he related to David in this example, in this episode? He tells David about a story. There's a poor man with his family, and they have a little lamb as a pet. And they care for this little lamb, they nourish it, it plays with his children, it plays with the family members. And there's a rich man who has a bountiful supply of lambs and animals. But yet he goes to the poor man and takes his lamb, his one and only pet for him and his family. He takes that, butchers it, and serves it to his guest that came to town. Nathan tells David this story, and David is extremely emotionally upset with what he hears. And he says that this man should be killed. He should die, and he's going to pay the price for doing this. And Nathan responds to David, "You're the man." Very powerful episode with Nathan and David, this confrontation, in essence, with the prophet and King David. King David, of course, recognizes his guilt right away, and he knows that it pertains to his adultery with Bathsheba, the wife of another man. But notice that Nathan doesn't come at David with a story, or he doesn't come at him directly with his sin, but rather the story of the little lamb that was a pet. Now, why is this significant? Why is this interesting? It's interesting for a couple of reasons, but I want to address one that you may not have thought of before, perhaps. And it is this. As we remember David's life, early on in his life, he was a shepherd. So he's attending to the sheep. He's taking care of sheep. And we know that he sacrificed himself for the sheep. Like Jesus Christ, in essence, sacrificed himself for the world. So David, I would speculate, I would surmise that he had a soft spot for animals, that he cared about various animals, and he was sympathetic to this type of story, and he understood how it related to him, because he took the wife of another man and later had that man killed in the field of battle. He gave the order, and troops were withdrawn from where Uriah the Hittite was, and he was an easy target for the enemy. But it's deep in the sense that Nathan knew how to get to the heart of David. He wasn't addressing his sin directly. He was addressing it, but it was in an indirect manner, by telling him, he didn't come to David and said, "You sinner, you adulterer, I know what you did." He didn't come that way. He comes with a story related to a small animal that was a pet for a man and his family. And David is extremely sympathetic to this. And in being sympathetic, he recognizes his sin. So I want to share with you a verse here we find in Proverbs that does relate to this. So again, just to reiterate, we know that that David was a shepherd. He cared for sheep. He sacrificed his life for them when a wild animal would try to take one away or attack it. He would go after that animal and kill it. Look at Proverbs 12, verse 10. "A righteous man has regard for the life of his animal, But even the compassion of the wicked is cruel. Especially the first part of verse 10. Verse 10 there in chapter 12 of Proverbs. And Solomon, the son of David, is the author of Proverbs. I wonder if he had some conversations with his son before his death. Before David died, very possibly he had conversations with his son about animals and about his life story, about how he was a shepherd, how he cared for the sheep and so forth. So here, his son Solomon writes in Proverbs that the righteous man has regard for his animals. So think about that. Think about that if you have a pet, and think about that even if you don't have a pet. Have an appreciation for the creation around us. All life. The birds, the cats and the dogs, the animals at the zoo, the animals you see on the Animal Planet, or wherever you may be, if you're lucky enough to be on a safari in Africa or something. Take note of the awesome creation and the amazing animals that God designed and made for our pleasure and enjoyment. And yes, they can be great companions. George A. James on King David. Take care. Peace out. I'll see you next time. Cheers.